Devin McCourty is presented by the Top Defense. If you've been injured, Catches Law Group. At Catches, you pay nothing unless they win. And they are the official law firm of the New England Patriots. And Devin McCourty joins us on the Harbor One hotline this morning. Devin, hello.
Were you expecting Devin or the picture you posted of Jason yesterday on Instagram?
Let me say this. If you want,
all right, I've been waiting for this moment.
If you want something done right, apparently you have to do it yourself.
Yep.
And I will offer an apology on behalf of the whole organization. The social media post yesterday apparently featured Jason, not Devin. So my sincere apologies for that. That will never happen again around here.
Well, I think you did it on purpose, so it's all good.
Did not, but we're delighted to have you on the show. And the best part about it is you can actually say what you really feel now, because you don't have to worry about Bill.
Didn't I always do that? What do you mean?
Yeah, you did always do that with us. You were pretty
always
good. You were
good,
pretty good about that. You had the leverage.
Devin's one of those guys. He made it to that status. He's one of those. I can say what I want. I'm not gonna get too much from Bill.
So we talk about this. Wiggy talks about this a lot. Do you miss it yet?
I don't, man. I've been having a blast. I'm on my way to the airport right now, going to Kansas City to be out there for opening night tomorrow night. So I think staying busy and doing other things has made it easier. I do miss being in the locker room, but I do not want to play football right now at all.
Speaking of Kansas City, Boomer Esiason was on this show yesterday talking about making his picks for the Super Bowl, and he picked the Jets. In your mind, is Kansas City not the favorite to get back in the AFC?
I think they're the favorite. I think the hard thing is not about one team, but the gauntlet that Kansas City's going to have to go through, whether it's the Jets, Cincinnati, Baltimore, it's all of those different teams. That's going to make it harder for them to get back.
Dev, when you start to look at, when you look at the Patriots and you look at this year especially, I think we always talk about the importance of Mac Jones having a big year because the Patriots have to make a decision whether or not they want to pick up his fifth-year option. What type of season would Billy O'Brien do you expect for Mac that puts him in a position where the Patriots will do that? What does he need to do?
I think one of the biggest things is just run the offense the way that Billy O sees fit for it to operate. I think the hard thing for Mac is when you watch the numbers and, what you see out there might not always speak to what the team feels about it. I think, having a harder strength of schedule will play a factor into, how good his stats are, how well he plays. But I think it has to be a bond between him, Billy O, and Bill Belichick of how they expect the offense to flow. I think it's going to be hard for them this year as far as an offense. You have a new offensive coordinator. The offensive line has kind of been in and out throughout the preseason. And then you have probably, not only just the hardest strength of schedule, the beginning part of the season is such a tough test. So I think for Mac, it's just him doing exactly what they want as a coaching staff, even if the outside world doesn't actually see, those results or the way they think it should look. It's him doing what the coaching staff wants him to do.
I'm on Mac Island, Devin, as I think you know, and I go back and forth with Scheim and Wiggy, two noted Mac Jones haters, about what his ceiling is. And having been there and seen him day in and day out, what in your opinion, what is his ceiling?
I think he could be a good player. I don't see him I think the hard thing for him is coming to New England. He's seen as like the heir apparent to Tom Brady. But there's one guy in the whole NFL right now that you're sitting there comparing to Tom Brady, and that's Pat Mahomes. You're not that doesn't just happen. So, but I think he can be a really good pro, and I think he can be the guy for New England, not just this year, but I think he can be the guy they extend at some point and make his contract, in a way that they can get, top talent around him. And I think this year is kind of the big first audition to that of having Billy O in there. And I think the group of receivers, might not be household names, but I think they're going to have a good group overall, which the Patriots have been known for throughout the years, whether it was Patton or Deion Branch and a group of guys that might not be, you know, the first team all-pro guys, but there's going to be a decent group that can go out there different weeks, be different guys, go out there and produce. And I think that helps him become a better player. But I think he's going to be a solid starter this year, and I think over the next few years he can turn into, you know, one of those better quarterbacks, those tier 2 guys, tier 3 guys in the NFL.
Devin, we had Ty Law in studio yesterday. He's going to be there Sunday. Are you going to be there and with the halftime Brady ceremony? And what is a memory that you have of Tom that you may not have shared about his meaning to you and when you joined the Patriots?
All right, so I won't be there Sunday. I'll be at work. And I feel like I've shared so many Brady stories because it's the highlight of every New England Patriot player that you play with Brady. So I think one of the coolest things that I tell people all the time when I see them is when I first got to New England, and it was back with the kind of old CBA where the veterans started in March, then they came in a little later. So when we all got there in April, it was just younger players, second, third, some fourth-year guys. So the first day Brady got in there on the field, and I'm passing by him, and he stops me, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Tom." And I'm kind of looking at him like, I mean, obviously you're Tom Brady, dude. And he goes, "Man, Devin, we're excited to have you here." And I remember I ran, like, as soon as we finished the day, I got home, called my mom, and was like, "Mom, Brady knew who I was. Like, he came up to me and said my name and everything. He knew me. But I think that always spoke to, he just was one of the guys. Like, he didn't want to be the superstar quarterback or whatever. Like, he just wanted to be, like, I'm one of the guys. I'm not here to play football. I'm here to get better. And that's how he was throughout his career and his time in New England while I was there. And I think it made it a joy and made our teams better for everybody else because of his attitude and how humble he was.
Did he ever make the mistake that Ken Laird did and call you Jason by accident or vice versa?
No, they all understood that I was a better McCourty. There's no reason to call me Jason.
Devin, when it comes to Bailey Zappi, we talked to you a lot at the end of last season about him, and I think everybody on the show besides Wiggy was surprised when he got cut and then now on the practice squad. Slater said a lot of the guys in the locker room were surprised by that. Watching him during the preseason, do you think that it was just a lack of good performance there that led to this? Were you surprised?
I think it was some of that. I think it was some of the growing pains of him still being a young player, basically a rookie now, because the whole new offense and him trying to get adjusted to what they're doing. But I think it also plays a factor in that staff understands the way the NFL works. So they're always going to release or bring back guys that they know that they can release and bring back. You know, I think that played more of a role than just what they think of him. I think they think like, hey, you know, if we would have got this guy last year as a rookie, you know, we probably would have had to keep him because he was a rookie. But now in year 2, we still want to work with him, but we can do that on the practice squad and open up another spot to work with another guy to see and evaluate him. Now for Zappi, that's not a good feeling. Like there's another guy that's now here and Matt Corral who's on the active that they're going to evaluate. And at some point they're going to evaluate him over me because they got to bring me up to the active roster or use the third quarterback thing. So I think for him it had to be a little bit of a letdown because you just don't expect that. So much talk with him competing to start coming into this season, which I didn't really think was going to be the story. But you never know in these situations. But I think that's a big drop off from, you know, kind of possibly think you have a chance to start to then being on the practice squad. So how he handles that will play, I think, a major role in his time in New England going forward.
Curtis said this morning earlier that he thinks the Pats win this one. Eagles lost both coordinators and some starters. I mean, you think there's a good chance the Pats can win this game Sunday?
If I was a betting man, I would not bet that. But in football, I think they definitely have a chance to win the game. I think it really comes down to how well the offensive line can mesh. We had Matt Light on the Twin Cast during the preseason, and he talked about one of the biggest things with the offensive line was spending time together, bonding, being on the field together. And for this group, they just haven't had that much time. And I know a lot of those guys didn't play in preseason games. But this group hasn't had a lot of time, even in practice, because guys being hurt, being in and out of the lineup. So I think that is going to be a major role for them because they like that front, with the Philadelphia Eagles, they have some players that are going to make it really tough for them. And I think that really can change the game. And I think dealing with Jalen Hurts, like I was back watching the Super Bowl from last year, he picks up anywhere where he left off. That's a task where, I think as an overall team, offensively, New England's going to have to score, and defensively, they're going to have to do a good job. But you can't really expect to go in this game and think like, hey, we're just going to hold this team and Jalen Hurts to 10 points and come away with a 10-3 victory or a 13-7 victory. Like, that's going to be pretty tough.
Devin, Matt Patricia on the sideline with the Eagles this year. Now that you're out of the locker room, how awkward was it with Patricia, Judge, and Mac last year?
Oh, I said it. I've said it this whole offseason. It just that wasn't a good thing. Like, there was nothing good about that. And I think a lot of people talked about the season, but from training camp, there was nothing good about that. But I think you will see some of the wrinkles and things that Matty P did in Detroit when we played him, and things that he knows that bothers the offense. Like I said it all last year, he's a really good football coach, and he's a defensive mind, and that's what he is. And that's what he's made his living on, really, in the NFL. So he's going to get back to doing that. And I think it'll add a great new story for you guys to talk about and all of us to talk about going into the game. But I think he's going to add some things, some insight for that team, player-wise and mainly coaching staff-wise of things they can do to try to be effective against New England. But, yeah, I think everybody in New England, and I think even Matty P, is happy that whole experiment is over. And, he's back to doing what he loves doing, coaching ball and talking defense.
So, Devin, you had talked about the offensive line not having a lot of time together. It feels, at least from the outside looking in, that Bill has kind of put this together with, like, duct tape and paper clips, and he's really trying to kind of patch the holes. Have you ever felt that, like, in the locker room, that it just feels like at times Belichick is really trying to just MacGyver a situation because of injuries or just lack of talent or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, if you got some time, go back and watch the defense in 2011. That was patched together, most yards and points in NFL history until that point. So, yeah, I mean, I think that happens. Like, sometimes you have some things, like they signed Riley Reef, and they're obviously expecting him to have a role, and he starts off the season on IR, and Big Mike Onwenu, he ends up on PUP, and, he comes back, and you get Calvin Anderson, he ends up on NFI. So, like, you do make some moves, and then you draft some rookies. You never know what you're really going to get from the rookies. But some of the moves you make don't exactly work out how you thought they would. So now you're kind of sitting there like, all right, how are we going to put this thing together? So I'm still interested to see who is the starting group, who's healthy, who's going to be out there. Are all the guys that are healthy, are they expecting them to play a full 60 minutes, or are we going to have guys subbing in and out just because it's the first game of the year, weather conditions? Like, how is that going to play out? Because everybody knows when you see offensive linemen subbing in and out, very similar to your quarterbacks. If you don't have one guy that can play a spot for every play of the game, it's usually not a good thing. So I think all of that will have to play itself out, and that's what I said earlier. It's a tough task coming in against Philly week one and trying to work out your offensive line.
Devin, we were talking about Russell Wilson earlier and Sean Payton saying to him, essentially, you got to focus less on Russell Inc. and more on football. You feel like with him, it was more of a drop-off when it comes to talent, or it's what Sean Payton is talking about and not paying attention to what he should be paying attention to?
I don't know. I think Russell Wilson's situation is one of the most peculiar situations in the NFL. But I saw Ryan Clark said, he tweeted out, Russ has been doing this. Like, he's been about his brand. He's been about doing things. He just became more famous, so we all notice it more and make a bigger deal, but he's always done these things. And I think even from talking to some of the guys in Seattle that play with him, it seems to be like this is who Russ is, but it all gets highlighted when you don't play well. And I think every guy in the NFL knows the more you do off the field, the more scrutiny you fall under. Obviously my time in New England was the same thing. The more I did in the community or stood up for different things, the more people wanted to judge me. If I had one bad play, everyone wants to talk about it, and I think that's what Russ is dealing with right now. I will say one of the things that I've always loved most about Coach Belichick was you never had to, like, Russ has to go now and talk in the media at some point and talk about hey, man, how'd you feel when Sean Payton said, stop kissing babies, you're not a politician? Like, I think that part stinks because that adds, you're talking about doing commercials and different things. Having to talk about that is just as much of a distraction of you planning with your PR people. What am I going to say? I don't want to make it seem like I'm mad at Sean Payton. Like, I think all of that plays into it. But he has, when you become that kind of player that Russ has become, winning a Super Bowl and different things, high-paid guy, you have to deal with these things. And that is going to be his season this year. He has to deal with it, and he has to be productive, or Denver's going to be looking for ways to get out of that contract.
Devin McCourty, it's going to be great to talk to you all season long.
I just have one real quick. Did you call your moms and say, "Oh, I met Wiggy"? Was that something when you met me? Because I'm hoping that was something that happened too.
See, Wiggy, there's just certain regrets you have in life, and now that I've gotten to know you, I really wish I would have called my mom. But when I was young, I just didn't know, the type of guy you were. So if I could go back in time, I would have called my mom and said, you know what? I met Wiggy, and he was one of the most clutch players in Patriot playoff history.
I appreciate that. See, that's what I'm saying.
by the
Everybody
way-
talks about Brady, but they forget, without me,
They forget about Wiggy.
without me, there'd be no Brady.
By the way, Devin McCourty, Super Bowl champion, national football analyst, and the only male twin in Greg's phone. So
Curtis, well done.
I don't know who does that kind of research, but I can respect that. That is great effort.
We learned yesterday that Curtis is very fascinated with who I'm
Up
spending
against
time
it.
with
Look at what
of
time
a
it is.
female nature, but we don't have time for that. Well, listen, so are you going to be, will we see you tomorrow night during the game?
Yeah, man. You think they're going to just tuck me away in the closet?
I can't. So what are you going to do? Sideline? What are you doing?
A little bit behind the desk, a little bit on the sideline, a little bit maybe if somebody's running down the sideline, I might think about covering them just in case I need someone to call me later in the season. Like, I might do a little bit of everything.
Well
go.
deserved.
Yeah,
more
well
you can
deserved.
do.
Absolutely.
Tell Rodney I said what
Hey,
up.
Greg, will do, Greg. I need you to go on and Google Jason McCourty, Devin McCourty, stare at the pictures, and see if we can get that right for next week.
We will get that right for you, I promise.
They look
And
different.
One's
we
got
can't-
more facial hair than the other, though.
Thank you, Courtney. Yes, exactly. It's easy.
Somebody DM'd me on Instagram, said that there's a scar also. Is there like a nose scar or something with either one of you that?
Yep, we got chickenpox scars. One's on the forehead, one's on the nose.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yep.
All right, Dev, it's awesome to have you back, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Have a good weekend, guys.
All right, that is Devin McCourty.